Hey guys, it's a beautiful Monday morning here in the Bahamas. I certainly hope that you have started your week off with a bang today as well. We have a love-hate relationship with Mondays. For some of us, we absolutely love Mondays. It is the time that we pitch up ready to conquer the week. For others of us, Monday has come too soon and we are just blah about getting our week started. But for me, Mondays are all about actually sharing one tip about boosting our confidence at work and about boosting our confidence in our careers as a whole. And so today I thought I'd come by and share one tip with you today and that tip is really about how to dominate by being solution oriented. Have you ever worked in an environment where you had a coworker who was just always on it, always on the ball? Whenever there was a problem, they would kick into action to find the solution. They would do the research, they would do the legwork, they would come up with all the creative ideas about how to solve the problem. Well, I want to clue you in on how that employee is securing the bag because most employers want, as a matter of fact, I will go so far as to say every employer wants a solution oriented employee. If you work for yourself, if you're running your own business and you have employees that are working for you, tell me in the chat whether you agree with my statement that having an employee who is solution driven is more valuable than having an employee who just identifies the problem and sit in it. So, with all the businesses that I've worked in here in the Bahamas and in the world, I can confidently share with you that the solution oriented employee, the employee that confidently helps to find the solutions, is an employee who is securing his or her job. When there is time for downsizing or when there is time for releasing employees, employers always hold on to their most valuable employees. And their most valuable employees are the ones that are buying into the brand, that are producing, so the productivity is high, but also that employee who is solution oriented. So, how do we become solution oriented as employees? I'm so glad you asked that question. We get caught up oftentimes in the problem. We can get so bogged down in the problem that we keep assessing the problem, but we're not necessarily looking for the solution. And we begin to dominate in our personal lives, in our career lives, in our social lives, when we can actually look at a problem and find the solution. So I want to give you four tips to help you become more solution oriented, whether that's in your job, in your relationship, whether that's in your social life, wherever it is, these tips translate to every aspect of your life. The first tip I want to share with you today for being solution oriented is whenever there is a problem, gather all of the facts. Now, Grammy used to tell me that assumption will make a beep out of me and you. So, assumption really is when we make judgment on what we believe a situation is without actually getting all of the facts. And how many times have you assumed something and that assumption was incorrect? And so when we're looking for solutions, we have to go beyond assumption and go beyond judgment. We have to go into fact finding mode. What is the problem? What are the root causes of that problem? So we have to gather all of the facts related to the problem. The second tip that I want to give you about becoming solution oriented is that once you've already gathered the facts, it's now time to weigh all the possible solutions for this scenario. What are all of the possible scenarios? And whenever I talk about possible scenarios, my mind often takes me back to the time when I was a little girl watching Sesame Street. I enjoyed watching Sesame Street, and I would run home from school to watch Sesame Street every single weekday. And I vividly remember this episode of Sesame Street where the young girl was standing behind the door with a jar of marbles. And as she started to think about pouring the marbles out on the floor, she began to visualize all of the possibilities that could happen as a result of her pouring those marbles out. She thought about her little baby brother running through the room, sliding and hurting himself. She thought about her mom opening the door after a day at work and coming inside and falling down in her heels. And so she started to look at the possibilities attached to her actions. And so the second part of becoming solution oriented is about weighing all of the possible solutions. If this happens, this will happen. If I do C, D will happen. And trace those possibilities straight through the solution. The third thing I want to share with you about becoming more solution oriented so that you can dominate in the world is that you have to consider the consequences. We weigh the pros and cons in every situation, but we have to look at the consequences. What would happen if this solution works? But what would happen if it doesn't work? And can I live with it if it doesn't work? We just have to weigh the consequences to make the best decision. The fourth and final thing that I want to encourage you to do as it relates to becoming more solution oriented is after you've gathered the facts, after you've weighed all of the possible solutions, after you've considered what the possible consequences would be, is to propose the solution to the people that you work for or for the person that's having the problem. When we share the solution, we now open it up for more discussion and for other people to add value to what we've shared. And that's the beauty about diversity. Diversity is about people with different backgrounds and mindsets, brainstorming and coming up with all of the solutions together. And so sometimes solutions require teamwork. And so gather all of the facts, weigh the possible solutions, consider the consequences, and then propose the solutions for discussion. An important part about being solution oriented, though, is having wisdom. We have to be able to exercise wisdom as solution oriented people. And what do I mean by wisdom? What I'm talking about is that we have to know when to take action and we have to know when to pull back. Because one of the secrets that I've learned as a coach and as a career coach as well is that sometimes people aren't looking for solutions. Sometimes they're just airing out their problems and they want a listening ear. And that listening ear helps them to process and clarify, and they're not necessarily looking for us to solve their problems. And one of the ways that I handle a scenario like that is by simply asking, do you want a listening ear or are you looking for support in finding a solution to this challenge? We can ask clarification so we know how to ask. As I wrap up, I want to leave you with 3 considerations as it relates to being a problem solver. The first thing is don't play the blame game. It's not attractive. Nobody likes anyone who throws the blame around. Take responsibility. Stand up and take responsibility. Even if you've made a mistake, even if you are the cause of the problem, own it so that you can resolve it. The second thing is don't be a victim. A victim says that you have no power. A victim says that you have no choice. A victim says that you don't have solutions. But when you stand in your power, which is the third thing I want to encourage you to do, to hold on to your power and stand in your power and know that you have inside of you the ability to brainstorm, to think, to process, to research, to find solutions, to narrow those solutions down, and to become more solution oriented. When we stand on top of our problems, we're able to pull the emotion out of it. When we sit in our problems, though, we get so emotionally caught up in what happened to us and who did what and why they did what they did. But if we just took the opportunity instead to understand that we're not victims, things happen to us, yes, but we're not victims. We can still hold on to the victor. We can still be powerful by standing on top of a situation, looking at that situation for what it is, identifying the possible solutions, and then choosing the solution that is best for us. If you want to be retained by your organization, I encourage you to become one of the employees who are focused on providing value through being solution oriented. That's my tip for Monday morning, guys. It's Monday, June 7th, and I thank you for tuning in. If this tip has had some value for you, I'd love to hear your comments. Don't leave me out here all by myself to create a monologue. Help me to establish a dialogue by sharing your feedback on how to become solution oriented. Make it a great week, guys.